Hello everyone, how you doing? Stompar Gamer here. I just did maybe 5 or 10 minutes on stream without realizing that my microphone wasn't working because for some reason Streamlabs decided that my microphone shouldn't be microphone, it should be 000XX00. Some hexadecimal number was in there. So, starting over. We're doing a video today about Stomp setup, both some of my PC settings, so Nvidia settings, as well as what I'm using. I have an i9 12900K CPU, so it's a 12th gen CPU. Some people have been having issues with those CPUs in game, causing some stuttering. As you can see, I have a very smooth performing computer with the settings I'm using, and I'm still using my E-cores. So again, some people are complaining about the E-cores and saying that the E-cores are the problem. That is not correct. I'm going to go into some of the settings that I use and ways around it so that you can end up maintaining most of your CPU performance without having to sacrifice anything and still get very good performance in game. I mean, I'm in an arena commander, so this is kind of pointless. Hang on. R underscore display info. What? There we go. So in arena commander, you can see I'm getting, 75-ish frames per second on an i9 900, i9 12900K with a 3080 Ti. But first, we're going to talk about control setups and how I fly ships. So there's a couple of ways I do it, and we're going to go here first to this picture and hope I don't crash while I'm alt-tabbed. So this is the setup I have for my computer. You can see I've got the throttle on the left, I've got the stick on the right, I've got rudder pedals down here. I use the same setup in Star Citizen as well as in DCS. I play DCS a lot. I have the Tobii eye tracker here with a little 3D printed stand for it. You can find this if you just go on Thingiverse and type Tobii Eye Tracker 5 mount. There's a whole bunch of 3D printed ones you can find to print out. The reason I use this stand is because I have a curved monitor and it didn't really stick to it on the bottom, and it didn't want to hang to it from the bottom with the Velcro. You can almost make out the Velcro there. It just kept falling and tilting, and it really didn't work. This mount has been working perfectly for me. So again, I got the stick on the right. The stick is roll, pitch. Sometimes I use twist for the yaw. Sometimes I don't. Depends how lazy I'm feeling. If I'm feeling lazy, I use twist for the yaw. If I feel like using my feet, then I use the rudder pedals for the yaw. I also use rudder pedals for space brake. I know some people use like right pedal is accelerate forward, left pedal is reverse, both is space brake. So I've heard of that combination there. I haven't tried that. But I think I would use that more if I was running dual stick. But I'm not running dual stick because, as you see here, I have my throttle there. When I ran dual stick, I found it very precise for combat, but lacking for other flight modes. So a compromise for me was using this. So I've got the throttle set up here. I have it set up for full range. So in the middle, dead. Pull it back, I go into reverse, push forward, and I start flying forward with a dead zone of about 50 set in the middle so that the throttle is pretty easy to find dead center. And then I've got over here, I got my coupled set on that button. I have strafe up, down, left and right set to this thumbstick with a decent curve and dead zone set for the thumbstick. Because otherwise, it's a very small joystick. A little move gives you a lot. So you really need to be careful and fine tune. I'm still fine tuning this to get it exactly where I want. And then over here, I have that set up for my power. Oh, and also when I push the thumbstick is when I get boost. This is set up for power, so down is going to I'd have to check in game, but I think down is shields, back is engines, forward is weapons, and up is reset. Then I've got, this is my zoom and my eject. This is my speed limiter, and pushing down is the ping. On the other side, I've got missile mode. Some of these switches and toggles are set for various functions. I still use the keyboard for some. Requesting landing, I've got set for whatever that button is, comma, tilde, whatever. I got it set there because it's easy. I don't really need to be pressed to request landing positions. Not usually, you're not really talking to ATC in a hurry. And I still have all the default keybinds as well for the keyboard. And I use obviously on the ground. And of course, your standard mouse. I have over here an iPad mount. If I want to put an iPad up there, I got power coming from the desktop, and I can then use Game Glass set up on the iPad. I haven't used Game Glass in a while. I haven't felt the need to. Um, but I may try it out again in the future. It had some neat features. I just found that I tended to use the keybinds I had on my controls or on my keyboard, and very unfrequently was I touching the iPad. Most of the time, the iPad was playing Netflix or something. So there's that. And then the secondary screen I just use for Discord, Streamlabs, whatever I've got else running while gaming. And ignore the cluttering of the 3D printed stuff. I'm a dork. We all know that I'm a dork. So into games, so some of the settings we've got. Like I said, the joystick is my roll, my pitch. I've got yaw set, and again I have them dead zones so that just a little movement will give you some movement, but not a lot. You have to give it a little bit more to actually start getting the full curve and the movement. And the reason is you want to be accurate as you're aiming. If you really have it just super sensitive, you know, any little twitch, and the next thing you know, you're facing somewhere completely different than you wanted. And I will use my pitch and my roll to get my nose on target, and then I'll use a combination of strafe, either up or down or left and right, to really fine tune my aim. So let's come in here to something a little bit closer to see. We'll head down to this guy. So again, with the throttle, I can zero it out. My hand's completely off. I know I'm about the middle. So once I start slowing down, I should come to about 0 on that throttle, and then we'll be done moving. And then I can just pull it back and put myself in reverse. So there we are. I'm at 0. Pull it back, full reverse, and then I can kind of fine tune inside of there by moving it. And I use just 1 or 2 fingers in my throttle. I have it set really loose, just so that I can really keep myself moving forward and backward. And I fine tune my speed. Not so much with the speed limiter. You can do that, but I find, like, especially in a light fighter, having just full throttle authority is very handy. If you're like nose to nose with a Vanguard, and you start taking damage, and you're like, man, I can't keep this up. I can then boost, have full throttle, and kind of drop under him, put myself in reverse, use some more boost, and then just stay on target that way. And again, this is a stationary target, so it's not quite as... Real combat looks better. If you watch some of the videos that are out there for combat, you'll see. But again, so having that full range of the throttle forward and back, I find useful. I know other people that use this switch here. See that little flip there? They'll use that to go from forward to reverse. So they'll have the full, the full stretch of the throttle from here to there would be like full, from dead to forward. And then they'll flip it and they'll be in full reverse and they'll adjust it. I could do it that way. I don't prefer it because of the simple fact is you have a higher tendency of going from full reverse to full forward rather than, I don't know. For me personally, I prefer the more finer tuned control that I get from having, a dead zone that allows me to use forward and back from the throttle. But again, at the end of the day, it's all about what works for you. Let's look at some of the settings I have actually in the game here. The keybinds, again, you go to advanced control customizations and you can set them up for your Hotas. And you're just going to have to set them up. You're going to set up your axes for however it works. Like I said, I've got pitch. So again, if it just says y-axis, that's your control 1. If it says input 2, that's your other one. So in this case, input 2 is my throttle. If it says nothing, that's my stick. If it says 3, that's my rudder pedals. So I have straightforward, I have decoupled mode, boost, all set up in a very nice, easy to use on my left hand. And then I have most of my axes on my right hand. And like I said, I switch yaw. Sometimes it's twist on the stick, sometimes it's the rudder pedals. It's kind of how I feel. I'll switch it up sometimes, but I tend to just stick with the stick, especially if my dog is laying on the rudder pedals, like he has a tendency to do sometimes. Then I obviously can't use my rudder pedals. So that's some of the stuff there. I have space brake set on the rudder pedals, both of them forward. It stops it. That's pretty handy. So I've got all these different things toggled and gone through there. I have request landing bound on here. I don't remember which button it is on my throttle because I tend to just use the keyboard. And then you got targeting and all the others. Again, key binding is very personal. You're gonna have to spend time with it and figure it out on your own. I can't give you the setup that works for you because you may have a T1600, you might have the T56, you might have Verpal. There's lots of different setups out there. But one thing I will go into under controls is something that I think is very important. So we're going to go over here to Hotas 2, and this is how I use my throttle. I got set up 0.5 dead zone. I could increase it some, but at 0.5 I find it's a good easy to find the halfway point for my throttle for forward and backwards. If you give it a little bit more, what you're actually doing is you're reducing the throw of forward and back. So I guess it's easier on the picture to show. So that makes it so like maybe this much movement. So from, let's say, this large tick mark to that little tick mark is more powerful than how it is at 5. So it makes that worth, instead of like maybe let's say a quarter throttle, that might be half throttle. The bigger the dead zone, the more sensitive it will get, and the shorter throw you'll have for forward and reverse. So I think 0.5 is a really good sweet spot. You can mess with it a little bit, but I would not set it to like 0.75. Anything up here, you might be able to get away with smaller here if you're really good at fine motor control. 0.5 seemed to be a sweet spot for myself. And then I've got on 1, let's see. Joystick 1 should have. I guess I haven't set these up in this latest patch. I usually have them set right around 1.2 or 1.3. Well, then I've been playing with no dead zone. Uh, I usually set up the dead zones of the joysticks so that I have a little bit more sensitivity when I'm flying. There we go. It's under flight movement. I'm such a professional. So under pitch, I got a 1.6, yaw 1.6, roll 1.8. I got strafe up or down, which will be under 2. Let's see, flight movement. So strafe forward and backwards, I got a 1.6 curve on that as well. And then I have these all set as 1. And then obviously you can mess with these to fine tune. So that's pretty much most of the settings I have here. I've got obviously chaff and noise and all the other fun things, targeting, guns, fire groups, all different on here. So that's what I use in the X56. And of course I love my Toby, because it lets me do funny things like that and look around. Now, on to the computer settings. So I'm going to just bring my little monitor here. You can see for this little session I'm streaming, I'm gaming. The highest temp I'm getting on my i9 is 60. Um, if I'm really like in Area 18, ArcCorp, Orison, I might get to 70, 75. It really doesn't go any higher than that. And you'll see I'm using all of my cores. The GPU is still getting up to about mid 80s. And I think that's more a setup of how I have my front radiator is basically blowing hot air across my GPU. Not ideal. Still trying to work on a fix. So that's a hardware PC tweaking question for later. It's still very good at 85, not a big deal. But again, I'm using all of my cores. And the way I'm doing that is I disabled, so you're going to have to do this in BIOS. I can't really show you. It's going to depend on which BIOS you have, which motherboard you have. But what I did is I disabled C states, which is basically allows your processors to go to a lower power state when they're not under full load. I got the game running, streaming, etc. I'm at 32%. I rarely see anything over maybe 40, 45% unless I'm running an artificial benchmark. So what that would mean with C states, these are constantly parking themselves. They're dropping power, they're dropping voltage, they're dropping frequency. So I was getting a lot of stuttering in game. People are blaming it on their efficiency cores because they're saying, hey, the efficiency cores are picking up some of the game. Yes and no. Windows 10, that is more of an issue. I'm running Windows 11. Windows 11 handles all the cores, the main cores, the efficiency cores very well. So all I needed to do was disable C states and Intel speed step. Yeah, I kept speed shift, but I disabled speed step, which is again another power saving move. So my processor runs at max all the time, right? So the CPUs are at 5.1, 5.0, 4.9 across all the cores 100% of the time. So I have very stable frames, very stable performance. I don't get stuttering unless the server is being goofy or it's loading a new area. That stuttering I think we're all going to get until they fix things, but it's not even big. Like you could obviously see things popping up and you're like, oh, thanks for drawing half of the universe when I'm already there. Cool. So that's more server side stuff. But like when you get an Arena Commander in the game itself, it's been very smooth, very well performing using that. I am not overclocking my CPU. I am not overclocking my GPU. Everything is stock. And I have a lot of leeway and I could overclock if I needed to. So really, if you have one of the 12 gens, please, let me rephrase that. If you have one of the 12 gens and you have Windows 11, please try disabling your C states and disabling speed step before you turn off your E-cores. I found when I disabled the E-cores, I had higher temperatures, I had significantly less performance, and the game just didn't. There wasn't that much benefit. But when I disabled the C states, it really just came alive, and it's been running a lot better. So again, I've covered pretty much everything I got for my setup. I got the throttle, like I said. I've tried dual sticks. I enjoyed it, but I found when I'm in my Carrack, my Hammerhead, the 890 jump, flying a larger ship, where you're not maneuvering quite as much. It was nice to be able to have throttle. And you just kind of set at a set point, and you can take your hands off, and you're just cruising along or drifting along. And it just felt better for me for the larger ships. And then now it's, I fly everything with the throttle. And it's been very handy for me. Not a lot of issues. Another thing to note on my setup, where'd that picture go? This distance is very important. I unfortunately have this rather large keyboard tray. I wish I had a smaller keyboard and a smaller tray so I could have the two controls closer together. Because unfortunately, I'm very wide apart. I got the Monster Tech mounts here holding it up, but they're very far apart, and I can't bring them any closer because of the tray. So on long gaming sessions, if I'm in a lot of combat, it will get uncomfortable, and I'll feel something in my shoulders or twinges. So pay attention to your ergonomics. The height of your monitor, the height of your keyboard, and all this. Because as the game goes live, we're going to spend a lot of time at our controls and flying. So I'm still looking for something here to get a smaller keyboard tray for my desk to allow for a smaller keyboard and mouse to kind of bring everything closer together so it's a more natural fit. So definitely consider that. I highly recommend Tobii Eye Tracker, like I've said a billion times. It's just very handy. So that's about it for today. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I know it's not a very exciting video today. Um, and again, I'm not even sure how to cover this topic. Just I keep having people asking me what setup I use. So here's the setup and some of the control customizations I use. Oh, and one other thing that people have said helps with the game. Last minute edition. The Nvidia control panel here. So let's wait for this to load. I'm not using any of these settings because a lot of them do not play well with Streamlabs for some reason. So I use DSR factors 1.78, smoothness at 33. I do use the shader cache size to 100 gigs. That does help with the textures popping in and out. You can also set vertical sync. I have it set for the 3D application setting. Supposedly, using it at fast is better, but this is what I'm using. And then there's one other thing. There's that. But this is kind of the big things. The shader cache size and the VSync will help with any other issues you're having, maybe graphically, if you're using NVIDIA. If you're using something else, then if you use one of the AMD cards, I'm sorry, I haven't used anything AMD since probably God, I was enlisted in the Air Force the last time I used AMD, so that'd be like 1999. It's been a hot minute since I've used anything AMD. So unfortunately, I can't offer any advice in that. I'm just an Intel and Nvidia fanboy. So really, that's all I got for you guys. I don't know if there's going to be any videos coming up for a little while. I got my daughter's birthday coming up, and there's just a lot going on in my life right now with training and other such stuff I'm doing. I try to be active, but it's the summer season. We're flying a lot at my job, and they're keeping us very, very busy. So it is what it is. Hopefully, if you guys ever go flying, you'll be on one of my planes, and you'll hear my little welcome aboard announcement. You'll be like, hey, that's Stompar. I know him. Feel free. If you hear my voice in the aircraft, please come up to the cockpit. Please say hello. If you guys are ever flying in the airlines, usually, unless we're really busy, pilots are more than welcome to say, we'll be very happy to say hi to you guys, let you look in the cockpit, you know, tip your pilots. Don't tip your pilots, but if you want to tip your pilots, I would always take a tip. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you guys are having fun in the verse. We got the 0.2 patch is supposed to be coming up pretty soon for Star Citizen, so hopefully we'll be seeing some fixes to minor bugs. And I don't know, I've been finding the game a lot of fun. I hope you guys have as well. And I can't help but think this looks a little bit like a Kraken. I'm just gonna put some landing decks on it. Yeah, looks a little bit like a Kraken. Alright guys. That's it. I got nothing else. I'm gonna go upstairs and eat some lunch, and hope you guys are